Welcome. This is the DNX Show. We're here every Thursday, 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. There's two hosts of the show. My name's Todd Ryan. My co-host is Josh Reason. We talk about domain investing each week. Sometimes we'll stray a little bit, but it usually all stays within the domain industry. A lot going on. Let me say hello to my co-host. Hi, Josh. How's everything going today?
It's going great. Going great. Good to be here. How about you?
Yeah, things are smooth as silk. There's a lot of, well, let's say people want to check out our outline. We do have a outline. We do have a website for the show. Keep it simple. Someday may get more involved, more detailed, but you can go to dnxshow.com, and that's just so people can see. Here's some things we may talk about, but we don't have any rules here. So, and for the outline, some of the things were from last week. I like it. Really, you make it easy because you're doing a bunch of shit. You're on DNW sometimes, you're on Sherpa sometimes, you post a lot on X, and so it's a lot of content right there. And then, of course, I like looking at domaining.com because it's an aggregator. And Francois over there, he basically, has all the links to the blogs and so on. But first, I want to just get to, yeah, so we weren't here last week. We took a week off. We're coming up on a year doing this very soon. I mean, it's pretty awesome. Basically, we've been pretty consistent. I was gone for 6 8 weeks, and then we've been pretty consistent. I know people appreciate it. I appreciate you doing it, Josh, too. I mean, one, just like Andrew Alleman, I don't, I was gonna say, go out and follow in your footsteps, I think, as closely as he did after your last podcast with him. But I do like all the domain investing advice. I'm pretty bearish sometimes on the industry, and we're going to talk about that. And but just some people are, that's our personality, skeptical. And one, just sometimes when I see everybody going in one direction, I just want to do the other. And sometimes it certainly doesn't pay off a lot because I like when, it's like a hot crap table. I definitely don't do it when it comes to craps. I don't try to warm up a cold table. But okay, so you were on DNW and you did talk. I finally listened to it last night. A lot about that. The I would say the not the project, but the practice, the exercise that you sort of did, registering domain names, and basically registering. So that's the key word: registering domain names, and seeing if you could be, basically be profitable. And you showed that you are. And matter of fact, so we'll get right to it. Um, the pretty interesting, I mean, I think you explained it well how you were picking these names. So anybody who wants to listen, you can find the link on our outline or just go to DNW. But Josh, so one name or one word that I've never cared for, and now you use it and you've made sales with it, is intelligence. Of course, I like it when I say, when it describes me. Okay, but I like it, as in business and stuff, and I know it's more popular, but it's so long. But you just don't. Sometimes I hear you're talking about words, and we're going to talk about another one that you mentioned. I forget what it was. I'll look at it. But you don't mind the length. Tell us why you invest with some domain names that include the word intelligence and how successful you've been, and also that one that you sold, I think, for like 15 grand here recently. But tell us about that word intelligence and why you're willing to mess with it in a domain name.
Yeah, I mean, it's just piggybacking off of AI. Really, AI is so hot. Intelligence is, the constant word that is used, whether it's super intelligence, dynamic intelligence. Intelligence is the constant. But for me, it's always just comes down to usage. If I see usage or I see the beginning of some adoption, it's interesting to me. Established trends are always great, and that's kind of like your safe bet. But intelligence keyword is something that I think has legs to run further, which is always a fun bet to make, right? Where you feel like you're getting in a little earlier, and thus have room for a lot more upside. So intelligence kind of fits that bill, as opposed to like a financial, which we already know is established. We already know gets usage. It's like a safe bet. So Um, yeah, I mean, Agent followed the same suit when I started registering them over a year ago. It's one of those where it's like, okay, there's a little bit of usage out there for various things, not much in the AI space, but there's this AI angle, and thus there's a lot of room for upside if we start seeing adoption with that keyword. And I think we're starting to get there, but we're still nowhere near where I think that it will get to. Um, yeah, I mean, at its core, domain investing, that's the name of the game, right? Is spotting things early, uh, placing your bets early, and trying to take advantage of that. And then once you start to see results, you kind of should then begin to double down on those theories and have conviction in what your initial kind of thesis was. Um, yeah.
Okay, so getting there early, like you said. Okay, so intelligence. Since it's four syllables and it's long, I always think, even if they're great words, are people going to put it in a domain name? And right, they don't. Most end users don't care about like abbreviations. I always think, yeah, and really it just ends up hurting them because I think instead of management, MGMT, or instead of matter of fact, that we got one that we're considering for. I want to talk about domain fund, property management, and that is like one of the highest appraised names that for the fund, and we got many better ones than that. And I mean, that's I guess a good one. But the point is, um, length appraisal tools. Sometimes they don't. I say some of them. We'll talk about that today too. Appraisal tools. They don't mind length. Some of the appraisal tools. Some certainly do. But so intelligence. Um, you've registered some. So two questions. One about that sale that you had. What was the name of that name? The first part of it. It was something intelligence you mentioned on the DNW show at the end of the.
I think the one that I mentioned on the DNW show was Clutch because
Yep.
that was my largest one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Clutch intelligence. I mean, man, oh man, that's just something. At least clutch was one syllable. That's why we ended up using. People wonder why we switched TLD strategies to stage marks. So I'd like, I was okay because it was two syllables, like trademarks, but stage marks. But anyway, so I always assume, shorter, less syllables. That's how I've always liked them. But now with voice, I don't think it really is mattering much. There's so much changes going on. Of course, we're going to talk about that. If you guys want to come up on stage, you might as well raise your hand. We got some not controversial topics, but topics that are certainly going to want to, and you'll want to engage in the discussion or the conversation. But Josh, so you said you like the names when you register them to marinate a little bit, or you basically, after year one, you plan on renewing most of your stuff because you felt like, hey, registering names, they are, even if they have been registered before, they were available for a certain amount of time because you registered them again. But you feel year two, year three, well, now they've been off the market again for a while or for the first time ever, and it does make them more likely to sell. Basically, give us just
Yeah.
expound on that a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, when a name is available for registration, it means that nobody is, there's no demand for that domain at that time. And the moment, like, it's not even, you know, $10 to register. So there's literally zero demand. When you buy a domain on an expired auction or from the aftermarket or whatnot, the domain was never available for registration. It may not have even been available for sale. Assuming it was available for sale, it was probably a price that wasn't a no-brainer for someone to purchase. Thousands, maybe sometimes even tens of thousands of dollars. In the hand registration case, it was literally available. So there was literally zero demand. So, logically, as time goes on, uh, you'd hope that demand increases because the domain is no longer just sitting available. So, year one, the domain was available in the prior year. Year two, it wasn't available in the prior year. Year three, it wasn't available in the prior 2 years. So naturally, demand starts to build.
Oh, you can't argue with that. About this word crescendo, I like people can't even spell it. Is there an sh in it?
I know.
No. But so why do you like crescendo? And I didn't even know
No,
that's popular.
I don't. I
Yeah.
don't. I was being clever because the guy who tried to hide what domain he was talking about, he was talking about crescendo um agent or crescendoai.com. He was basically bragging that he bought crescendoai.com and that he felt like he got it for a steal for $450 or whatever, but he was hiding what the name was. That's what the name was. It was crescendoai.com. Um, so I was trying to be clever.
Okay. Would you describe me as clever? I like that word so much, and then out of an
I
English
would
person's
describe
mouth.
you as I would describe you as very clever. I
Okay.
will say this actually, I've had more sales with Intel.com recently than I have with intelligence.com as well. So
Yeah,
there's some alpha.
and that's a great no, that's a great example of a lot of names weren't registered with just Intel in them. Certainly, there was plenty that were registered, but you talk about these certain keywords, especially business words, or I really like that you brought up like old English words or Latin words or old Greek words that people don't really use today, but are great brands, and then you add those two. Of course, everybody would love to own the single word, but when you add those two, these suffixes or prefixes, different connections that you were talking about on D&W. Well, there's going to always be some that are available, and we're not talking through slipping through the cracks that people are finding on drops. They're just flat out still available. But anyway, Intel, Intel. Well, there's just so many names out there available, and then now people do consider, okay, if it's so good, and they're doing it with two words, should I pick it up in a .ai? But how do you feel about two-word .ais? Is that just stretching it a little bit? Because .ai is hot, and that's the next area where people will, start investing. But how are you feeling about two-word .ai? Even if they're, not necessarily those two words like homework that are fucking really almost one word, but I mean a true two-word .ai. Is that investable?
Can you still hear me? I switched to Wi-Fi.
Yep.
Okay, cool. Yeah, absolutely investable. I've sold quite a few of them. Um, I sold and like for good prices. I sold newimage.ai for 10 grand, maincharacter.ai for 10 grand, thecircle.ai for 10 grand, digitalscience.ai for 10 grand. Um, so yeah, proof is in the pudding there, I guess.
Yeah. Are you, and I'm jumping all over the place. Anybody wants to come up here, come on. But I'm just asking Josh some personal stuff now about lease to own. Yeah, I just had one cancel. Do you notice that, are you having issues like that with some lease to own? I mean, more than you would expect. Basically, when I say more than I expect, yeah, I'd say half of mine go a few months and then they're low value ones, and I'm going to change down like to 6 months, maybe 4 months, because it's just ridiculous. I would do what people are doing too, and I'm leasing a name right now for $80 a month. So I mean, I can see why people do it, but do you have that
Yeah.
same thing happening to you?
No, actually, my LTO like non-default rate is very very good. Most of mine complete, and currently I have a lot ongoing. I haven't had a cancellation in quite some time, but yeah, I generally keep my terms pretty short. Uh, Most of my stuff has always been around like the 6 to 12 month range. I do have some at 18. I have one at 20 as well. Um, but I don't have anything above 20. So, but yeah, I mean, like, I think it depends on the name. I think, um, yeah,
Well, right. I
I
mean, I was
think
going to say
I
I wouldn't not want to offer the LTO. Don't mean to cut you off there, but it's because I know buyers like it, and if you happen to have a great name, say you bought for in less than a grand or less than 2 grand, and you're selling it for high five figures or even six figures because you just got a great price on it, then of course it makes sense to let somebody, you know, divide it up and pay $5,000 a month over a year because their very first payment already takes, it takes care of your expense, your cost for it, and then people just, there's no doubt I would say it would hurt if you don't offer LTO. Yeah, another thing that you mentioned on DNW before I get to some of your comments in the past couple weeks that are domain related. Yeah, you said you had no problem with Spaceship. You know, you just made some sales there, but you're back fully on Afternic, and I think I understood it. But so when you say back 100% on Afternic, what do you mean by that? Landers, Boost, Bubblegum?
Uh,
What do you
I
mean?
think I was just saying that I most of my landers. I was referencing landers. Just talk. Most of my landers are on afternoon. I wouldn't say it's 100%, but it's like 99.
Okay, yeah. And you've always been, I never consider you pro Afternic. I can just consider you pro smart investing, and meaning you're like, listen, you look at your numbers and okay, so Abdul Bassett did that big thing, and then I remember I didn't have this on our menu, but right then Michael Sumner chimes in, and I always confuse it because I used to talk with Anish. I haven't spoken with him in a while, but when he bought Name Bio, and I always read some of those messages, and they sound like Anish a little bit to me. I know it's Michael Sumner, but I'm like, the truth of the matter is, Anish has had the fucking 60,000, 80,000 names. I don't know how many he has now. Hopefully a little bit less because he was thinning them out. But I didn't know personally how many Michael owned, so I always, but of course I appreciate his perspective, can, run and name bio. But I would like to know how many do you own? Because I know I own 50,000, and I'd like to, you can really ask somebody who has to pay the bills, how are you feeling? And one thing I always remember Anish told me was he always had better success with the make offer lander at Afternic than pricing it. But anyway, and that was a few years back. But anyway, so Michael Sumner said, "Hey, thanks for this information." Abdul Bassett, what was it? Was it 50? He said, how much business did you lose by completely, taking your names off of Afternic Network, and of course not using their landers, but basically completely separating himself from it. And he figured it was like a 50% drop in sales, which, okay, I mean, and Michael said, I called it. That's what I figured it would probably be. I guess that makes sense. Is Did you see that? And what do you think about those numbers? It does make sense, and it was. Could you have almost predicted that when Abdul Bassett said he was gonna, separate from Afternic? You knew it was gonna hurt him. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, people that talk to me fairly regularly will know that this was, I also predicted that. I responded to that post that you're referencing from Michael. Obviously, he helps Anush manage a portfolio of, I don't know, 50 to 100,000 names. Um, so he he knows what he's talking about. He always has done. But my response to it was essentially that we already knew this. And I'm probably privy to a little bit more information than most people, just because of the networking that I do with some of the with at conferences and just chatting with people. But we already knew this because of huge domains. They wanted to go independent for a while for a couple of reasons. A lot of people thought that it had to do with Boost. I'm sure that was an element of it, but they also just, from a company valuation perspective, they wanted to prove, you know, their numbers without relying on a third party like Afternic. And they had a huge drop in sales, and they were back on Afternic within a year. So, um, although they didn't come out explicitly and say that publicly, I think that anyone who was like plugged in will have realized that Afternic is a pretty important component.
Yeah, the numbers, and I remember your response there. Yeah, the numbers that they brought up earlier, I think in that post were 65% Reg Path, the other from the Lander, and I've always saw that in mine. The most I've ever had 6,000 names. I used to have them before 2020, I believe, up until 2020. I would have my own Landers, And my own landers would go to a website that I had called Bel Air Law, and I had this site and would direct traffic to a law firm that my friends operated here in LA. But so what I would do is take one page and have it for, basically the domain lander saying, so it should look like it's going to this law firm. If you're interested in this domain name, fill out this form. And it worked out really well. I don't know why I never continued it, but I thought that the brokers at Afternic could handle it better. My sales didn't hurt when I go into Afternic landers, but it doesn't seem like it's improved. But long story short is I always had consistent about 65% of the sales would come through Afternic, 35% would come through my lander. And I would know, of course, 3 out of 10, whatever. And it was real simple. And I saw that from like 2014 to 2020 is when I had most of my names, because now I'm down to 1,200. So I would, to me, I'm like, listen, it's 2/3 reg path, and I, still feel that way. So anyway, that network that they put together of these hosting companies that are also, registrars or resellers that have a search path, and of course all the registrars that are part of their network. Speaking of that, yeah, look like Name Pros. I'm interested in, you guys at DNX with your, registrar that's going to be opening up. I bring up Name Pros because apparently, oh no, it's not Name Pros. It was instant domain search, which I've always used, instant domain search, and I guess they're going to be a registrar as well. So a lot of people getting into the registrar game. Tell us the status of what's going on with DNX registrar, and then I have some other DNX questions if you don't mind.
Sure, yeah. No, things are good. We're onboarding with a couple of registry, VeriSign and PIR at the moment. Our like registrar UI and UX, we've been making a few changes to. But I mean, testing environment looks great. I mean, for me, I think the UI is super, super clean. Deciding on what kind of features and how we want everything to act. But yeah, I mean, in general, making good progress. I think probably ahead of schedule, I would say. So I don't know. Might open it up to the public earlier than I expect, but I'm not going to put a date on it yet. But I think it'll be cool. I think it'll be a really clean UI. Like you said, it's a competitive business. So I don't have a particular strategy in mind at the moment in terms of how hard we're going to go with trying to get people to manage names there. I think we're just going to try to build the best registrar that we can and go from there.
All right, and every company that's doing this now, and I just the ones at the top of my mind, Atom, because they're fairly new, and then I read this news about instant domain search, and of course you doing it at DNX, and I think everyone brings different things to the table. What I mean is some of them may have, I don't know what kind of traffic instant domain search has, but it seemed to me like, geez, they should have done this a long time ago, or somehow connected. They do connect to the aftermarket because people are use that. I guess what I'm getting at is all of you have different things to bring to the table, and it's almost like starting out the gate. Some may seem to have advantages over DNX, I say, because they may have more traffic right now, and that could be Adam as well. But to me, it's like a big long horse race. It's all, be patient over time. I like your attitude towards it. Listen, we're certainly going to market it. I'm going to be with you there. We're going to market it. The UI, if it's good for you and you like it, seriously, I think a lot of domain investors are going to think like he doesn't want to, he's not going to make it difficult on himself to manage his own portfolio. So he's going to make sure he's got, the most important features. And of course, you just can't have everything at the start, even at the end. It's just, there's just too many, all these different interfaces. I have no problem with any of them because I use the basic stuff, whether it's Dynadot or Spaceship, and I got a few names. Of course, Name Bright, GoDaddy, Pork Bun. We all start using them all, but no, I look forward to it. And yeah, so we know it'll happen this year. Summer's not even here yet, so I think it's nice. At least you're being patient, giving your guys time. You got a cool team there, and not pressing them, but I know they're busting their ass. I wanted to ask you about the DNX brokerage stuff. What's been going on there? How's that working out? And is it getting busier by the month? What's happening with the DNX brokerage?
Yeah, I mean, it's still kind of in beta. We haven't released it. We haven't kind of marketed it to even our. We haven't even emailed our user base about it yet. We've kind of like soft launched it in the Discord. And yeah, I mean, there's been plenty of submissions. I had a call with media options yesterday just to kind of like go over a few things, talk about what our expectations is for them and their expectations are for us, and how we can just continue to build it out in a way that makes the most sense. Um, but yeah, I mean, there have been plenty of submissions. There's been plenty of names that have been approved. Um, if you want to check out like what one of the landers looks like, the name that comes to mind is onestepcloser.com. So if you check out onestepcloser.com, that name is being represented by media options right now. But yeah, in general, things are moving along. Again, like just to be like super clear about it, I'm not in a major rush to push anything or everything at the moment. It's just more about building the best platform possible and then iterating from there.
It's a cool lander. I like showing the couple the logos because one, it starts building your brand, but people like to know. It's almost like being truthful. Okay, so we're partners with this brokerage firm, and I know you do it also with Pro Broker with Brooke. But so people, because sometimes people go to a name and they're like, did they own it? Who's basically responsible for this? I thought I went to DNX, but no, I like this makes me think, okay, so more pros, the more people working on it. I like mostly like when it shows a minimum offer and has a number there to give people an idea. Like, yeah, don't put 50. But that's another thing. I saw a post from Shane. He was saying that he doesn't mind $50 or $100 offers, anything. It's easy to answer. But do you put minimums on your stuff? Because no one wants to answer $50, $100 still. Even though I know sometimes if it's a name you're trying to sell for 2 or 3,000, it's not too far off. You might be able to get them up to a grand or 1,500, even if they start at 50 or 100. But do you put minimum offer on your names at Afternic and stuff like that? And how do you, what
I do.
percentage? What do you do?
I do 50%.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's good too. I know they like you to have like 60 or 80%. I forget what they recommend. 60% minimum offer, 80% floor, and then your buy it now price. But whatever, I don't know. And well, I'm thinking about that, and that broker Tom, that's who it is. Yeah, I didn't know the guy. I've never worked with him because I haven't had, I guess, good enough stuff. But anyway, um, do you? How are people working with him? They act like, yeah, they work through. You don't select a broker at Afternic. Even you don't, right, Josh? It's sort of like there's different brokers that are handling different names. So you've worked with, just a gamut, a wide variety of brokers there, right? You don't have one that you might prefer, but one that you reach out to. Is that? Do you?
Um, yeah, I mean, like, so Tom is a buyer broker. Apart from the stuff that he's doing he's also working on domainnames.com, so he's doing some brokerage there. But historically, he's just been a buyer broker, meaning when he has when a buy request comes through GoDaddy, he's essentially the top broker for that kind of request. So if you've got a name that's not listed and he's got a buy request to buy, that's when you would have come in contact with him most of the time. Um, I used him a lot for, buy requests myself when I was trying to buy names that went on the market. So that's how I had a pretty close relationship with him over the last 2 years or so. Um, but yeah, he's put himself out there a lot more in the last few months. So more and more people are getting to know him.
Yeah, if you guys want to, I say this, I'll talk to Josh all day. We're going for another hour and 10, 15 minutes. Today we always cut it right before noon Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern, because I do have something I do every Thursday at noon Pacific. But today I might cut it 10 minutes before the top of the hour because I've been on call since 6 a.m. my time this morning. We had depositions with Jeff and until I was on all morning until I couldn't wait to get off to do this, saying I'm busy, you know. But very interesting. I mean, so much going on in the domain space, especially I was gonna say I'm working on some domain cases legally with Jeff, but then the GTLD stuff is heating up. I'm not going to get into it now, but it's so interesting because a lot of smart companies, smart all the individuals that are doing it of forming, LLCs or corps to do this, but I do expect there to be about 2,000 different applicants this time. If you guys remember, just quickly, last time there was 1,930 applicants, but 1,409 unique strings. I know this because I was on I'd say massive call yesterday, and we were going over these old numbers. But basically, so you have all these applicants, but there's only so many of them are for unique strings, and then that means, of course, there's going to be all these contention sets, which is just people competing for the same string. But very exciting that I believe there will be one or two. I think there's going to be more successful strings out of this next batch. And the reason I say that is because there were quite a few that weren't selected in the first round. And now people are more open to alternative extensions. And I think we'll have some people in this next round willing to market their extension a little bit more, and maybe they'll break through. I don't expect many, but it's like sperm. Somebody is getting there. All right. So, Josh, when it comes to this motherfucker, you guys come up here on stage because you're going to want to talk about this. Okay, so that post that you made, people need to be ready in 5 years. Lots changing. All you're trying to say is, things are changing. You always got to be, ear to the ground, just looking what's ahead. And you said correctly, a lot of folks didn't know. I certainly didn't know the impact of AI was going to make so quickly. And 5 years ago, yeah, we weren't even talking about it. I mean, absolutely not. And then 3 years ago, we were like, it's going to be great. And now we're like, it's unbelievable. So, there, give us, I mean, sort of, I want to, start the conversation about, well, why do you think in the domain space, people resist so much the, anytime you bring up, hey, be careful, there could be some uncertainty coming up. Um, you know,
Yeah.
expand on that, and then I'll tell you, why I believe that the domain space people are so opposed to, these sort of contrarian views or bearish, anything that's sort of bearish. Go ahead.
Yeah. I mean, I think firstly, I think a lot of them have all of their eggs in one basket. So to say that I'm going to take that basket away is probably quite an inflammatory statement that probably upsets a few people. Um, One of the reasons why I was thinking about that and wrote that post is not because I'm saying that domains are going to go away in 5 years. Not like the market might even be stronger, but I do think that I'm seeing like this. It's not quite a trend yet, but this idea that um you you almost like don't want to endorse marketplaces and that like domains can sell themselves, and you're essentially like adding friction and like selling less names and holding on to more of your names for a longer period of time rather than what I believe is like the time to be selling as many names as possible while the market is, doing incredibly well, continuing to go up. But like, it seems crazy to me that you would, for example, remove all of your names from Afternic, remove all of your names from every marketplace, and watch your sales drop at a time where the market is so bullish. For me, that is just such high risk. At a time like, and like you said, so much is changing. I do think that there is a lot of uncertainty, and nobody knows what the future is going to be in the long term. You may know what it looks like tomorrow or 6 months from now, but you have no idea what it's going to look like in 5 years. Um, you know, even some of the most innovative leaders in the world don't know what it will look like in 5 years. So I think all I'm saying by these statements is that you don't think that it'll always be this way, because it won't. So um, that's all. I mean, listen, I have a bigger bag than every single person that's upset by that statement. Pretty much. Maybe there's a few exceptions. So uh, you know, trust me, I would love for domains to go up and up forever in value, but that's not going to happen.
It, and true, a lot of people with enormous bags, I mean, they say a lot of domains under management, they certainly are like, hey, it could happen. I know, I talked to some partners I deal with, big portfolios, and they're like, they don't mind, people saying, be wary, because they're like, we're wary all the time. When we got these big skyscrapers, when someone says, we haven't had an earthquake in a while, they're like, no, we're concerned about it. We can't be afraid of it, but we do think about it and try not to have, and if we do have all of our money in skyscrapers on a motherfucking fault, we are like, all right, well then we got to, be willing to understand and take that risk and be a man if something does happen. Of course, you don't want it to happen. I always think, Josh, with the
Can I just say this
yeah,
real quick? You can only draw conclusions from the information that's available today. And the information is changing rapidly. So what the information is available today is not the same information that will be available in a year. And when information changes, so does the narrative, and so does the possibilities of, what may or may not happen in the future. So yeah, based on today, in 5 years from now, based on what we know about AI, even today, 5 years from now, yeah, domains probably continue to go up in value, and it's all golden. But the outlook of domain names is not based on how, on what exists today. All right, it what matters is what will exist a year from now, and 2 years from now, and 3 years from now, and how does that affect the long-term future? And we don't know. And we don't know. But what we do know is that things are changing, and things are changing quickly, and things are going to change even quicker now that we're in this AI era. And, nobody can argue that. It's been like the case for the last 2 years that every month someone says, I can't believe how fast AI is moving. I can't believe this. I can't believe that. And, because of the speed that it allows, people to innovate and build, it's only going to get faster, and the change is only going to happen more. So yeah, I mean, listen, I'm not telling you that I know what the future looks like. I'm telling you that I don't, and neither do you.
um, when I hear that, domains are increasing in value, only think that they're increasing, like, overall they are, and that's because more and more domain names, millions each year more, start having value. And I mean, in these other extensions, and that's mostly it. And now other extensions, before many of them had zero value, and now there's millions of them that have, worth in the three figures, in the four figures. So now, and we know there's going to be these single words that some, when I think when most people hear domains are increasing in value, that's just like across the board. You got a domain name, it's going to increase in value. I don't believe that. I believe we're really, the average name in a .com gets diluted by better names and other extensions and then other country codes. And one thing, regardless of AI, Josh, is we know country codes, and other extensions are becoming more acceptable. Well, country codes were always acceptable, but now some countries are just like really, some companies in certain countries are really digging their feet in, saying we feel comfortable with just a country code. We don't care about the .com, and we know other businesses, a younger generation too, are absolutely knowing these other extensions are okay. We know old guys are going to say you're fucking losing traffic, you're going to fuck up your emails. There is problems with it. We do understand that, but these other extensions are being adopted. So to me, that just the whole market of domains is opening up. So I could understand if there was a big value on domain names, because now there's so many more that are considered, having some value. That's where it's going up. I don't believe that you might be owning an asset that is not, basically I've kept raising prices, and I think if I was willing to sell some of my names for 10 times the profit, I have $200-300 in the name because I'm lucky I registered it 20 years ago. If I would offer it for $3,000-4,000, I believe, and I don't do it, that I could make a lot more sales. But no, I went from high four figures to low five figures to some mid five figures, and it really detracts from the sales. And people are like, listen, that name's worth something. It's worth 4,000, 3 or 4,000. You can get rid of it. But me, because I'm like, sometimes I believe these names keep increasing in price. But okay, so I think Arif joined us on stage. Arif, what thoughts did you have? Nice to have you here.
Hey guys, it's almost exactly what you said. Yeah, I mean, there's two sides to the market, right? Supply and demand. And most people who don't succeed in this business don't truly understand, the demand side, like who are the buyers and or what, the price points and all that stuff. But we've talked about that stuff before. But as you were saying, the other side of things is the supply, right? And it's exactly that. It's this dilution of supply. It's we're giving a new round of new GTLTs, but I don't think it's really that. I think it's just that they're becoming, slowly more acceptable over time. And, the number of what we'll call like acceptably good domains will increase because of that, right? So there'll be new stuff, but it's not just because of the supply increase. It's also the acceptability, right? Is that the demand, it's going to shift. It's not going to be, the two-word .coms are not going to be so dominant over these other NGTLDs and country codes, right? Alternative TLDs in general. The demand for those are going up. And then that means that, there's so many more choices that people have available. Now, is it going to happen overnight? No. Is it going to happen in 5 years? I'm doubtful it's 5 years, right? It's going to be slowly transition like it has been over the last 5 years. Like there's no denying that if we had this conversation 5, 7, 10 years ago, right? Everyone says it's .com, right? And now it's like, well, no, there's alternatives, and again, it depends on the strength, and the strength for each alternative TLD varies, but over time, with the acceptability, I think the strength of those alternatives slowly goes up. And now the question remains: is there still going to be a market? Are there going to be so many domains that are acceptably good that everything goes to zero? No, that's not going to happen, right? And the .coms are still going to be king for the next 20 years. But again, it's like what becomes acceptable, as we've seen with .ai, they're regularly going into six figures now, right? And so, would we've thought that 5 years ago? I probably would have bet against that, on a regular basis. Occasional ones, yeah, but for it to be as as well as it is, I don't think so. But it's still baby steps, and who knows? 10 years, maybe we'll have to figure out something else to do.
I know companies would like to just get rid of, even the .com. I don't know, how they would do it with DNS, because, they're these internet websites that resolve or go through, DNS, I guess my point is, I know Coca-Cola would like to be Coca-Cola. They don't care with .com. Amazon's got to add a .com. And of course, they're like, if we have to add an extension because that's the name that needs to point to the number, and we're all on this DNS, then yeah, we're going to take what's the best extension, or the one that's most universal, or the one, that people sort of default to. Of course they want it, but I know Amazon, like, just know us as Amazon and just go to Amazon. And if people could just punch that in, that would be what all of them would
Yeah.
prefer. But
But there are technical limitations to that, right? There's technical issues there where it becomes difficult. I mean, look, there's a bunch of companies that do have their corporate TLD or whatever. I forget what the term was for those ones, but they use dotless emails. I don't know. I think they could set it up, but would all the software actually, like, of other people, would that work? Would it resolve? Like, if the KPMG, right? They at one point they used home.kpmg as their homepage, right? But like, then if they had emails, like say Todd at KPMG, like theoretically within their internal system that would work. But could anybody from using Outlook or Gmail, could they ever get into contact with anybody there? Probably not, because those systems just wouldn't accept the structure of the email. So there's certain limitations in place that probably are going to be good for us by not allowing those to be too prolific in the future.
They were just a little bit before their time. I mean, meaning using it because of a lot of the systems aren't ready for it. Now, I think it's great because I think if you anybody can register Amazon-log-in.com, but Amazon can control the .amazon. So if it was login.amazon, of course, then people, they would, like I said, too early, and people were just getting used to the internet, and then they start going to, .com really took off on, life of its own. People were waiting for something to catch on, and that's absolutely what happened with .com. But my point is, I like, for the security reasons, for brands to own their brand, and, maybe it would never catch on. It's certainly smart, though, to know, that if you're not going to a domain that has our extension, it could be a phishing domain. It could be a fraudulent website. So it's real if you're getting an email from us at .amazon, because we're only issuing those out to authorized users, or it still doesn't have to be just within the company. It could be authorized resellers and so on. So I do like the security of owning their own extension, but it was just a little too early. We talk about Web3 shit too early. It certainly can be, and I'll give you my take on. Well, Josh, does that? What do you think? What do you think of that, about the security of having your own? I don't know. .dnx, pretty cool, but does that make sense? Yeah, at least you control your brand and any emails, phishing. Basically, you can really reel in security issues by having your own extension. What do you think? Is that a don't
That's
give a
it.
shit?
I mean, sorry, interesting. I haven't really thought about it too much from that perspective. I do think that from a business perspective, I would be pretty interested in owning a new GTLD over the next 5 years or so. Just feel like if I could get the right one, I could, for lack of a better term, kind of like sell the shit out of it, and
God,
make some pretty good,
I have some
make some pretty
ideas
good money.
too, Josh. Some that have never been applied for. There's so many. There's some great stuff, and nothing's conflicted with any of the clients I'm dealing with. Some of the ideas that I've had, because I certainly would hate if somebody got involved and I'm already have non-compete with people that I got some major clients I'm fucking thrilled to be working with, but I do believe there's another .xyz, and better ones. And but yeah, and it's not too late. So those listening, if you are applying in the next round, reach out to me. You can do it over at the law office, Todd at jjnsolutions.com, because of course, I learn everything from Jeff there. I mean, I do a lot of research myself, but Jeff just is a fucking, he's just a wealth of knowledge. There's things we were talking about the other day that when you become, when you're successful at an application, you end up having to sign an agreement with ICANN for 10 years. Now, there's ways to unhook yourself from that agreement. Jeff even said unilaterally you can get out of it, so you don't need an agreement from both sides. But it's not necessarily easy. But just things like that. There's a lot of commitments that you need to make. It's a long-term relationship. But Josh, you and I'll talk about it. There's some things, and I figure like the guys like us that if I'm going to do the work, and believe me, some of the legal work, and then a lot of the policy, compliance, and management to a registry, and then guys like you, we do the marketing for it. We're out there selling it, and some other guys, and I know a few. They can pay for this $500,000 to get started, and that's really what it takes. And it's really a lot more money than that, because we have people. $500,000 is just really getting you rolling. But we know, we've seen it, all of us. Look at the people that, I think that was Google. I should know, was it Google that did .now? Or was it Amazon? Anyway, they waited so long to release .now, but when they had these levels of some of these premium registrations, they don't run necessarily a tight ship, these big companies who have these extensions, and they paid a lot, they pay a lot for them. But if you run a tight ship and you have a good extension, and there's plenty of them, I'm telling you, that are still available, with premium domain registrations, and if it, there's just really a big upside to it. If you're, like I said, if you're running a tight ship, you still got to risk, you still got to have $1 million to make some moves, to be alive for a couple of years. But anyway, I really like it. I really like the ideas. But the only reason I say that too is because what we were just talking about, the public is adopting other extensions. They're willing to use it. And Josh just said 2-word .ais are even investable. Josh, think about 10 years ago, 15, I told Rick Schwartz, hey, they use a .dev. He fucking think that's silly, stupid. Well, listen, there's the biggest companies out there might be on a .com, but when they are doing, offering products, whether, software, hosting, whatever they're offering to clients, internally, they might be supplying their clients with, .dev domain names, .tech, and they're not interested in owning, using a .com for these particular services that they're offering their clients. And some of it's pretty sophisticated stuff, from payment services to, like I said, hosting a company's, whether simple as websites, but even more important platforms within companies. But I guess the point is .dev, .tech, people would have written those extensions off completely, and some of those are becoming, I'd say very successful, meaning there's a lot more registrations to those extensions than you think, because it's not just public facing usage. But all right, so just talk to this guy. If I was listening to me, I'd think, shut the fuck. Yeah,
I'll jump in on that for the second time. I mean, it's for all those other ones, there's demand, right? But the question for us is, there's enough demand for investment value, right, to acquire them. And yeah, obviously the top one words for these other ones. Yeah. And, we have to recognize that with .ai, it's the perfect storm, right? We have the technology of, I don't know, the century, but, whatever, of at least the last quarter century, right? Easily, right? And it fits perfectly into a compatible country code that is available, right? And we're also 10, 15 years into the alt TLDs being more and more acceptable on a progressive basis. And yeah, it's not absolutely acceptable by everybody, but that pool is certainly has gotten larger and is continues to get larger. And I think we're at the point now where, we're seeing alternative TLDs have good sales, right? Does it mean that you should invest in all of them? Well, there's opportunity in each of them, but I would say the breadth of domains that are, you should be looking at as investments is still pretty narrow in most of those. But, again, with With .ai, it's increased a bit. I think .org is, I don't even consider .org an alt TLD. To me, .com and .org are the two extensions that are not alt TLDs. .net, I think at this point, obviously technically it's not an NGTLD, but in my mind, I see it as probably one of the best NGTLDs when it comes to tech, right? You got something in tech, .net is acceptable and it's still a good extension and whatever it is. But, times are changing and it's slow in some ways, but with AI and .ai, that's a totally different thing, right? That's a whole other scale where we're having the whole global economy is shifting based on that. And it just so happens that the alt TLD is available for it. So you shouldn't read everything into that.
Yeah, Josh, were you going to say something? You forgot just when I was talking a lot there. Hey, Dave joined us. David, nice to have you, David. It was good seeing you the other night, too. What's up?
You as well, Todd. Great to see you. Hello, everyone. Yeah, I was just listening into the conversation and just wanted to, share my opinion on the .ai. I like the .ai, but I do see it being expensive. I mean, and I'm not seeing, a large shift in actual websites using .ai. I'm not necessarily a .com maxi, but I will say that I still believe all roads lead to .com. Anyway, that was my only take on that. I like other extensions. I have AI, .xyz, country codes, but I still can't help but think that the excitement around AI is going to ultimately fuel more .com sales.
The usage, us domain investors, and I would say us, because I'll include myself with the morons. No, okay. What I mean is sometimes we just think .com, people use them for websites. That's the best stuff for us to resell. That's all that matters. It is, there's plenty of other options. We're smart enough. We are aware of that, but really .com is where to invest. It seems simpler. And now there's, of course, a few others, .ai and some country codes. But companies use .com, and we only look at what's public facing. I was just mentioning there's a lot of usage on these other extensions that are internal that companies are using. Basically, if you could see the numbers of how many .dev names are taken, and then you realize, okay, so sometimes that's not as many. There's maybe only so many that are taken, but then companies will use them for sub names. But the point is, they're still being used, other extensions, and it does make, true users, true businesses understand and adopt other extensions and realize it doesn't, we may have the .com as our one front facing, and that may be, they may spend a lot of money on that one name, but then behind the scenes, just okay to use the others. Josh, I wanted to bring up, and I'm sure Dave and Arif will have the thoughts on this, but the reason why, it's like in the stock market, there's always going to be analysts who think, you know what, we really believe there's going to be a correction here, and some things are overvalued, and we're going to bring it. As soon as you do that in the domain space, there's a lot of the guys that have been invested for years. No, and usually it's the big brokers or the big portfolio holders are usually the ones that, I was going to say, sometimes not even big, large portfolios. It's just the ones who have some premium names. And I bring up the Costello brothers because they commented, and they don't have a super large portfolio, but they certainly have some 7 and 8 figure names. So say that, out loud. So when they listen to the replay, and I know they will, they know, yeah, so at least Todd's not bullshitting there. They still, okay. But the truth is, they don't, in this space, they don't like to hear anything. No, there could be a reason why. And we just were talking about the different, the adoptions of all these other extensions. And now we do have AI. The adoption of other extensions was happening whether AI was around or not. But now you start getting more rocks thrown at the tank, so, can it tear down, a wall or put some holes in it? And really, it's just weird that the folks in the domain space, they get a little crazy when you're, not even being bearish, but just trying to be realistic to think, hey, Do we let's think about this.
Yeah, I mean, listen, like people forever have and will continue to always look for reasons to uh, validate the assets and possessions that they own, um, especially if they're a large amount of their you know, net worth or large amount of their investments. It's just natural instinct. Like most people, they're gonna they want to protect them, and then you know most of the time they're going to convince themselves that that these things are often more valuable than they are. And geez, man, I can tell you for a fact that domainers in general are extremely privy to that behavior. But it's not unusual. Real estate people think that real estate is, the best thing since sliced bread, and it keeps going beyond that as well. And it's just the way of the world, and you either recognize it or you don't recognize it. So, I would say a good practice is to uh, look for reasons why your assets aren't as valuable as you think they are, um, and that's typically what I do, which has you know its benefits, but it also has uh, some some downside to it as well, right? I mean, conviction is important. Sometimes blind conviction can be beneficial, especially when you're overvaluing your assets. Um, but yeah, I think in the long term, I think it's probably a negative. But listen, sometimes you don't even get to see that negative because, for example, the domains have been incredible investments essentially since day one. Um, so yeah, nobody's been hurt who went hard in domains. So
Well,
go ahead, Eric.
a lot of people didn't succeed, but I know what you're saying. Overall, what you're saying, it does make sense.
hold on. Nobody who has invested in domains and properly. I'm not talking about people that
Yes, yes,
hand registered stupid shit because they didn't know what they were doing. I'm talking about people
yeah,
that have spent serious money on domains and knew what they were doing. None of them have been hurt. In
yeah,
fact,
totally
they've
agree.
done very, very well.
Yeah, totally agree. It's just that the other category represent more volume of people, but not the volume of actual, investable domains. I
Yeah,
understand what you're saying.
yeah. I mean, like everyone who's super invested in the space is always like massively bullish on it, right? For good reason. And then everyone who's not successful in the space follows them like lost sheep.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it's interesting to watch.
But what you said is like it's super important, and not just on the level of like the broad categories, right? The TLDs and whatever it is. I mean, you have to within your own portfolio. I mean, like this last year, I felt because I hadn't done it in years. This past year, I dropped about 10% of my portfolio, right? Because exactly that, I reanalyzed it and go, okay, first of all, I'm more experienced because I hadn't really seriously made that cut in many, many years. So my experience level is significantly higher than before. But it's like, yeah, no, those domains like did not belong in my portfolio, and they were .coms, right? Two-word .coms, like for the unexperienced person, not too different from the other ones in my portfolio. But for me, it was like night and day. Like, why did I renew this the last 3 years? Right? It's like just doesn't belong in there. And so, yeah, it's not just on the broad level. It's like your entire portfolio. In general, we need to look at it, and all of them. Do they still make sense? Right? Are they a trendy domain? Is it trend over, or is it like? For me, always the question I always ask myself is like, is there a buyer out there for like who's going to buy this? Right? Is there somebody out there who's going to spend $3, $5, $10,000 for this domain? And that question, thankfully for most of my portfolio, is evergreen, right? Most of my domains are not like trendy or whatever it is. So the answer is fairly consistent. But again, last year I found that there was 10% of my portfolio where it was either that or again, because of my increased experience since the last time I really did that cut, I realized that should never have been my portfolio in the first place. So yeah.
There was that post Brad made, Data Cube. I wanted to bring up. I got a bunch of things I want to say, but I've been talking so much. Okay, so the post I wanted to bring up was, Josh, that data you commented on, or you reposted it basically. He said, after browsing marketplace listings, forums, and social media, it's clear why most domain investors fail. They own bad names. You don't need amazing domains to succeed. You just need some decent to good names, priced realistic, with realistic end user prices. So my comment is, yeah, I think I'd be a lot happier if I priced my names realistically. I think I just am shooting for a little bit too much, and sometimes a little bit too much can just be, just a little bit too much. So I really respect Brad. I forget his name, Mugford. I forget his last name, but he's been doing it for years, always on Name Pros. But cool guy too, smart. But yeah, so you reposted that because basically that's it in a nutshell, right? Most of the reason they fail, just own bad names, and then when you do whatever you do own, you just don't price it right. And so I think I got
honestly,
some okay names.
honestly, one of the biggest reasons why people fail is because they follow the best in the industry and then try to replicate what they do with shitty names, which is literally the worst thing you could do.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's three reasons why people don't succeed. I've said this last year many times. Like the first one is just you buy not the wrong type of domains, right? I mean, it could be a good domain that you have, but is it a good investable domain? And people, unless you understand the difference, you should not even buy a single domain, because there's tons of good domains out there that, again, I say all the time, if my friend came up to me going, "Oh, I'm starting this business and I'm buying this domain for $10," I go, "Yeah, it's usable, right? Is it going to be your best choice? No, but is it usable? Sure. But those domains that are usable are not good domains, right? And that represents the vast majority compared to the investable domains. So, gotta be careful of those."
Yeah. How much do you value that unique search data on Afternic, Josh?
I like it, but it's to be taken with a grain of salt. Useful information definitely goes into some purchasing decisions, but there's plenty of names that have incorrect numbers. So you just got to be careful. Use it like a pro.
Yeah, I bring it up because Elliot posted a couple hours ago, and then I see Logan and Shane posted, "Why we've been on the show? Why don't they just come on in here?" In a lot of these people, everybody, listen. I know you're busy. I know I'm busy, and I still do this. But I mean, domainers, they love to talk and be around. It's not Shane. Shane participates a lot, and he's fucking posting his blog every day. So this guy's in it. But I see. Anyway, Andrew Alleman said he was going to come in, or I think he wanted to be invited to a show sometime. But these guys, I know they work less than me because I know what they do. How come they're not in here wanting to talk about domains, or even Logan, Mark Levine? I need to know these guys. Anyway, the reason I say it is because I see Elliot Silver. Elliot, what? You guys don't like to talk domains? Come on in. Anybody but the lawyers. The lawyers don't need to come in. I'll call them when I need them. But so Elliot posted, here's my top 10 domains by unique searches at Afternic. And, I think the data is good. When I say there's unique searches, because it's better than nothing. So if you're getting, it says 30 a month. All right, so maybe a few of them mean something. It's better than, showing that you get none, or if you just get a few, it's probably bots. But so if you get a name that's substantially getting a lot more searches than your other names, sure, you would take that in consideration and think, okay, but what name do you think is better out of these three, Josh? Eventplanner.com, goodtimes.com, or Posto, Posto.com. If you know research, but you were just like, hey, you're going to be able to, you get one of those for free. But basically, we're going to give you one of those. Event Planner, Good Times, or Posto.
Good times.
Okay. The rest of his stuff. I think Self Care is pretty good. He's got Gotta Go, but the only .ai. These were all
Self-care.
.coms.
Self-care is the best one.
Self Care. Okay, Gotta Go. He had Navigator.ai. Okay, so and I just saw as I was here, doing the show, juggling, doing many things. Shane says my top 10 domains by unique searches at Afternic over the last 90 days are, and a lot of people just want to post their stuff, but
Yeah.
Agenix, I don't even know if you believe it. He wanted to show that he's got some 3-letter there, RUZ.com, JHM.com. So I love 3-letter. I love short. So, but he said Agenix, AGENIX.com, BigD.com, and anyway, and I guess EAI.ai, which that's weird, EAI.ai, but maybe there's a company, even if a company was on the .com, a big company, why would people be looking at the AI? And then again, it's EAI, so who knows? But let me ask you, out of these names, if you just had to pick that AGENIX.com or either of the 3 letters he has, RUZ.com or JHM.com, would you take that Agenix more than the 3-letter, or which would you take?
No, just take the 3-letter. One of those two.
Yeah, no, I just like to hear him getting
I'd take the big D. I'd take the big D, and I love his price on it.
Yeah, Dave, we know you'd take the big D, man. You don't need to tell us here.
If you like the big D, I can just sell you dick.com. I'm fucking, I'm working with it.
I knew you'd have something to say on that
meant
one
like
too,
Big D,
Todd.
like Dave. Oh yeah, I guess that's cool too. Yeah. Well, finally, so I got one last guy. So Logan posted that his top 10 names that were getting searches were Wealth.ai, USAI, and then Temple.ai. So a couple .ais. But Josh, so just out of these two, Wealth.ai and Temple.ai, which would you take?
Wealth.ai.
Okay.
That's a insanely good name.
It's like one of those tests you got to take when somebody's going to hire you. They try to figure out what's in your brain. Okay, I figured you out inside out. Don't need to talk to you anymore. Looking for a new co-host to the DNX show. Todd's figured. Hey,
Let's go.
Hey, okay.
I'll take applications. I'll be done by next week. Who we got?
No, don't do it.
I think honestly, I think Adam. I think Adam looks like he needs a new hobby.
No. When we do jump out of this, it's going to be like tandem fucking sky, whatever you call it. What do you jump out of the sky? It's called sky diving. Yeah. Yeah, we'll be doing that together, and we'll let 2 other people take it over. It'd be fun to watch them fucking run into the ground. But okay, so the other things that you mentioned, most overrated skill for domain investors, and they didn't like hearing this. I know the guys really didn't like it, but they're always nice to you. They don't want to say too much, but they did resist a little. Creativity and imagination. And I totally get it, because that is why it's much riskier. And I've done exactly that. Like, boy, this is a name that someone could build a real cool. It's like you're a naming person, so you're real creative. It doesn't always work it definitely doesn't work always in domain investing. Now, if you're in a naming company and somebody's coming to you and they've invested in taking your advice, then I could say, here's a great name, here's why. And I've done it with folks saying, this is better than what you're using now. It's shorter, it's cooler, and they like it. And then you connect the dots, them to this name. But if you don't have that person that's looking specifically and you're just with your imagination, so, Josh, you said that's the most overrated skill, creativity and imagination, and the most underrated skill, we'll get to later, data interpretation. But tell us why, when you're real creative with domains, why that could be harmful.
Because you're trying to look for reasons to buy a name based on your own creativity and not on reality. Yeah, I mean, without the likes of Brand Bucket and Atom, those kind of names would be like worthless, literally worthless.
Yeah, people don't realize how lucky people who have brandables are to have Brand Bucket and Atom, because it's like the acceleration and enhanced visibility that brandables get because of those marketplaces is just like off the scale.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that brandable names aren't good. You can buy brandable names that look creative, but without creativity. It's called following data. Just because you're following data and using data in order to narrow down certain types of brandable names, that doesn't mean that you're being creative. It just means that you're following data. So I'm not saying that brandables are bad by any means.
Well, it's never all or nothing, right? There's a scale, and it's just like the scale drops off pretty quick with brandables. I've sold tons of brandables on Afternic, right? Meaning that somebody was looking for the exact match, especially back in the days when that's the only search result that would show up in the in the registrar searches. And so
Anytime you hear someone say, "Oh, like I saw that name and just thought, wouldn't it be good if it could be used for this and it could be used for that?" And it's like, "Uh-oh, you're doing
yeah,
that? We're doing
yeah,
that right now?" And you
yeah.
see, you see it on Sherpa. We do that. We say like, "Oh, wouldn't that be a great name for this and a great name for that?" And it's like, yeah, maybe, probably would, but God, I hope that
But
someone thinks the same way that you do.
before when I was talking about demand, that's exactly it, right? Like what domains are really in demand, right? And it's not always, you can have some really what appears to be really good domains, and you could say, oh, this would make an amazing business and blah blah blah. But no, that's not how domains sell. Domains sell because somebody has an idea or somebody has a startup or whatever it is, and it's an existing thing, and they associate that thing with that domain, right? It's not the other way around. It's not the domain doesn't sell the idea because there's no way to do that, right? Maybe on Flippa back in the days, you could you could sell a business that way, right? But usually it's the other way around, and it's not. It doesn't work the same way both ways.
Hold on, we got a special guest, Dr. Johnny Fever. I mean, LS Love. Who thinks that's the same person? For some reason, I do. But hey,
Dr. Johnny
LS, what's going
Fever.
on?
Hi, everybody. I want to ask Josh and Todd what they think about Unstoppable Domains post yesterday where they will help us mortgage our homes to pay for our domains. I
That was
think
a
it's a big
April
idea.
Fool's, LS.
Was it?
Yeah, they were,
Okay. Well,
they were
I
fucking
hope it
around,
was.
but I know when I think Josh commented, and I know Shane has. It's like, yeah, you can't tell people do crazy bullshit all year long, and then they do crazy bullshit yesterday, and you think I wouldn't doubt it. I wouldn't doubt that they're doing that, but yeah, that caught you off guard. Yeah, because
Yeah, man. I mean, like, oh man, like, just talk shit all year. Like, that's my thing. It's like talk shit all year long, so people know that you talk shit, or don't talk shit at all. That's it.
yeah,
Well, anyways, thanks for straightening that out for me. It hit me, in a bad way, and I'm glad it was a joke. Although I never saw anybody mention it.
It reminds me. It reminds me of that time. Do you remember, Todd? Maybe like I don't know, 6 months ago when I said something like buy .ai domains, mortgage your home if you have to, and everyone people got super upset about it.
no, I
Well, you
know.
should have waited till yesterday.
Yeah,
I know, but LS Love, I say stuff like that all year long, and I think generally when it's a hot take like that, people realize that I'm joking.
Brady did. It was mentioned about the HELOC, and when I was reading those same posts as you, I caught on because I knew he was fucking around, but he was, he went with it, and of course, I read this bullshit on April 1st, and then all of a sudden I read the next one and I forget it's April 1st. It's the same hour, and then I'm like, is that true? And then it's like, okay, so some of it, is people, say something far fetched, and you're right. But anyway, yeah. So
Fake news from a company that's like trying to be taken seriously maybe is not great. Like I would never post stuff like that from the DNX account, for example.
I
Do you
thought
know
it
what I
was
mean?
irresponsible.
yeah, well, Unstoppable right now, they're ballsy, and what I mean is now I am impressed with, and I'm not going to get into this because but I'm impressed with Brady, how much he's learned about domains and how much he frankly doesn't give a shit about a lot of the personalities and the history of it. Because sometimes I'm like that, like, hey, you know what? So what? I know then people treat me bad. He's willing to take it. And what I mean is, I come into a poker room. All right, I don't know all the pros. I'm probably only going to be here for a minute. You guys aren't going to like me. Stick it. It's like if you're an outsider. He's learned a lot about the business, and I know he's a bright guy. Now, if I was him, I don't know, I would jump ship. There's a lot of guys that, I'm not impressed with some of the other personnel there. I don't care. But the point is, there's a lot of people in our space who've invested in Unstoppable. And then also, similar with some of these other companies who sponsor, whether it's, I'm not going to get into it, but when a company sponsors shows, and we already brought up Unstoppable, but they're not the only ones. There's a lot of new companies that have started in the last 4 or 5 years. They sponsor things, and people, oh, well, we love your money, and you're basically open arms to them. And then some people have invested in some of these companies because we know in the domain space, I could, list off a bunch. I like Dynadot, who Todd, and like what you've done at DNX. It's okay to have some strategic partnerships, and when I say okay, build it, as they say, from bootstraps, or however they say that. But when it comes to, raising money, there's a lot of folks in the domain space who, hey, I'm starting this parking company, or I'm starting this new Web3 company, or I'm starting whatever. We're friends. A lot of us invest in other people's stuff, even if it's, when Drew would put a name on MJ on Rally Road, a lot of those investors are friends. I know guys like when Monty started a fucking, a bar in Vegas. You reach out to your friends, and you've helped them in the past, whether it's maybe help sell a million dollar name. Monty certainly has helped a lot of people sell names. And now it's like, hey, if you still got any of that dough, I'm doing this. Why don't you get involved in my business? My point is, it's a small world, a lot of good relationships, and the people will invest in these other businesses. So, I think that's, then all of a sudden or if somebody was really sponsoring this show, of course, you're going to know if we were sponsored. Here, we're nice to DNX. It's the DNX show. But if I was sponsored in any of the things that I do, you would know, because then I would bring it up and say nice things about them. I'd be forced to. But anyway, so I always take it with a grain of salt even when I hear Drew saying nice things about Unstoppable. Well, because I like Drew and I like his opinion on stuff. But when he's invested in the company and they're a sponsor of Sherpa, no, I don't care what he thinks about them. So, but I feel that way, not just about him, about anybody who's, on the money train of a company. And I know, like I said, there's a lot of other companies that sponsor bullshit. And I think, no, I don't want to hear about, even, people do nice things for ICA, sponsor certain things. And I'm thinking, yeah, then the ICA can't help but, I think, not be neutral or non-biased, because everybody, as soon as you start getting money from places anyway, that with Unstoppable, I'll finish by saying, hold on, let me finish by saying what Larry was, when I saw that, I was thinking, right now there's so many people that's sensitive, they felt like they spent a lot of money with the company, so even jokes are tough to go over. But I don't blame them. If I was on the other side and I was part of that company, I'd think, listen, but we're out here on the ocean sailing too. It's dangerous for us. We're trying to go in the right direction. We want to, and we all have our own, attitudes and personalities, and we're not going to fucking be in a closet and not be who we are. So I can appreciate that, but I know it is, sensitive time, and they just happen to be in the light this week. But remember when it was Epic, or even when Spaceship, when Richard makes a bad comment, you always got to be, sort of aware of your customers, basically read the room. All right. What were you going to say, Arif?
I have no idea.
Yeah, if I can fucking do that. I'm surprised I haven't put a lot of people to sleep. I used to do that. I had a stepdad. I'd fucking talk.
Anyone had any big sales that they haven't reported, or small sales that they haven't reported? Get some DNX show exclusives.
Raise your hand.
No. Arif has got some.
Yeah, I got a good year so far. I mean, like if you include the discounts, the $10,000 I saved by transferring a whole bunch of 2,000 domains to Unstoppable, I'm almost breaking even for the year. Like I'm probably a few $1,000s away from it, but no, my
What was the last name that you sold, Arif?
let me get up to my computer. Hold on. I don't like to say too much anymore because all the AI scraping, but I'll share.
Yeah, but you got to do it in the DNX show. It's just the rules. Pay to play, bro.
All right, I'm good. Let me get my computer.
You too, Adam. Pay to play. Oh, especially freaking Nameably. That dude's doing things on the low all the time, coming in here. He's scraping data from you for sure. For sure.
Yeah,
Oh,
I'd
well, I'm
like to.
looking up.
Go
What I
ahead.
was going to say before was, yeah, the problem sometimes with sponsorship is that people often see that as endorsing, right? Like it's obviously not the case, and but at the same time, if like I said with the ICA, they at one point they were taking sponsorship from all the blockchain name companies, right? That to me was like oof, it made me a little bit uneasy, but at the same time, it's like, well, they're spending money to send Zach to the ICA conferences, I'm sorry, to the ICANN conferences to push back on the trademark lawyers. I'm like, yeah, I'm fine with that. It's all good.
Yeah. All right, we got Nameably up. He's got some sales to talk about. Let's go.
Hello, hello. No,
Hey, my friend.
I got one sale, but it's recorded. I don't know if I should, as long as everybody promises not to post about it.
Promise.
Yeah, we'll make
Okay.
sure that they
It's
don't. We'll kick them out next time. Go ahead.
it's a 4-letter. It was PRNO. Sold for 27K. That was my net from escrow.com.
God.
So it
Congrats,
sold
man.
for
That's
30K.
awesome. That's awesome.
Thanks.
I love that you've like found. I know you don't. I hope you don't mind me saying. I know you picked up the circle recently. I feel like that's you've kind of like found your niche with those 4-letter.coms, and I love those type of names, man. I feel and you're doing a great job.
Yeah. Thanks. I was lucky. So when I picked up that circle, I think I came first with a broker from Sado because otherwise you couldn't negotiate too much.
Yeah.
He bumped it up to he said, oh, it was the wrong price. And then he bumped it up to 50 or something, or 100.
Yeah, it was 15 before, right?
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah.
And then he went to 50. And then last month, I just gave him the same offer, low ball. But this time he sort of accepted it. He added 1K, but then I said, okay.
Nice. She paid 6K for it.
No, it's similar to your Tiger.
Nice. That's a good price, dude. I like it a lot. I actually, I'll tell you the truth. I almost bought it for 15 or whatever it was when it had that price on Cedo. That was probably about a year ago now, because Circle is an incredible brand, and obviously, these abbreviated misspells are definitely popular. And yeah, like the circular economy is kind of like a big thing right now, and yeah, I think that's a stellar name. I would be definitely asking 6 figures for that name.
I love PRNO. I mean, I love good letters, and
Of course you do, Todd. You like any name that you can extract some sort of porn out of.
and I wasn't even thinking that. Can you believe that? Porno. You're right, without the O. I mean, geez, Josh was on top of that. He tried made the mistake all the time. I wasn't even thinking that. I was thinking PR. I was trying to figure out, of being skeptical.
Why
like
you like
Arif,
this so much?
on these 4-letter. But so Nameably, tell me, without specifics on the PRNO, if you want to, how long did you hold that and what did you buy it for? But more general of, have you been buying 4-letter over the last couple years? Are you, they haven't been cheap, especially good letters like that. And it's not pronounceable necessarily, but I love, because I consider those quad premium, all 4 good letters. But tell us about you acquiring 4 letters over the last couple years. How many have you added to your portfolio?
Yeah, so the reason why I picked these 4 letters, one, it's because they're more liquid. So even though I don't plan to exit, but if I ever do, there's that option. So you feel like more safe in your investment. The second thing was that I think I had like the last 4 or 5 of my sales have been these sort of abbreviated stuff. So like Bunny, like BNNY, uh, ecstasy with the XTCY. So I'm taking this as a positive feedback, and I just reinvest into like better versions of these types of names. But for the PRNO, I bought it for 1,400, and I think I bought it like 8 months ago.
Like 27,000 net, beautiful. But Josh is thinking drugs, Playboy bunnies, porno. This
That's
is
right.
just
I might have been the buyer, man. You don't know.
ecstasy. But anyway, namely, it says more about you. I'd bring Josh in to prevent ricochet off you. You're the one buying these things. But no, I like. I have still several, couple dozen, let's say, but exactly like those, meaning I think great letters or at least mean something sort of pronounceable. But Noah, how did you tell us about the pricing real fast and where you sold it? I mean, did you have it lower then raised it? Did you have it higher then lowered it? How did you come up with your 35 grand price, and where'd you sell it?
Yeah, so I'll probably shout out one of the brokers here, which they specialize in sort of these porn sort of names. So I got a good experience with him. I was just testing him out. Let me get the URL if I can find it.
Oh, I know which dude you're talking about. That's interesting.
Jay, you know him?
Yeah. I've seen that he's like, yeah, he's literally like specializes in porn names, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
sex names. Yeah.
I thought I'd just give it a shot, and it worked out there. Let me see if I can pull out the, what is it? I think it's broker.xxx or something.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah, Todd, you better get him sexmarket.com.
I got Jizzer too, and of course, I'm partnered with Rick, the Big King, on Dick.com. I mean, come on, can he get some big money for Dick? I mean, I know I have in the past. Ha ha. That's right. Hey, but anyway, yeah,
Not
sex
the
market.
big dude.
Well, Arif, why you had your name all ready to go too, and then we just go right to name. But Arif, because we know you're a mainstay, we can get it out of you. Well, what was your sale, Arif?
So
I want to hear
I
the 5-figure sale that you had this year, Arif.
I've had 2, but I'll tell you one of them. Well, I'll tell you the other one first. The more recent one was financialmarketnews.com, right?
Damn.
Yeah. Look, I only sold it for 3. I actually, when I was reviewing my prices, it doesn't go up, but it's just, it's a good domain, right? But it's just, there's so many options, but it's like, no, it's still solid and good. But I don't know. What would your price
Financial
on?
market news. I'm still trying to process all those letters, man. I'll let you know when I know what it is.
Yeah, exactly.
Financial market news. I mean, yeah, 3K, decent name.
Exactly. Yeah. So one of the fivers was Epic Trucks.
Oh, sick.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah. I was happy with that one. That one was which one was that? I forget which one that was. I think it was one that crossed the New Year's. Yeah, I had another one too. I had another one in the health, but I'm not going to share exact, but it's more like an addiction and kind of stuff. That was the other.
If you share it, I'll share a $50,000 sale that I had yesterday.
I'll tell you
Otherwise, I'm
privately.
not going to.
Yeah, I'll tell you privately, but not.
Oh man, the people aren't gonna know now.
Well, they know Epic Trucks. I also have another vehicle one, which is LTO, but it was a lower amount. But the car forum, right? I was like, these are names like I planned to drop, but like I always put them off because and it's like no, somebody bought it, right? It's not a ton of money. What was it? It's priced for 3K. I don't know if I sold it for that. I think I sold it for 2.5, right? But it's like it's just these names that you never know what's going to sell, and it's just I don't know. Maybe there's something I looked at on Google when I got it because like the car form I got in 2007, Epic Trucks I got in 2017, Epic Trucks I got in 2018. Let me see, Financial Market News, 2017. So the other one I was talking about, the health one, was actually one of the ones that I bought last year. And we were talking at one point about you were avoiding like the 3-figure acquisitions. It was a 3-figure not only did I sell it for 10K, but it's also I didn't price it, I didn't list it. It came
Oh,
through
cool.
through that buy service. Yeah. So just it goes to show, like, yeah, I kind of agree with you in general, right? But again, I'm not going to buy something in mid three figures if I think it's actually worth mid three figures wholesale, right? I'm going to get the real exceptions because I don't buy them very often, right? So it's very hard to find needles in the haystack when things already get bids. But every now and then there's something that comes up. It's like, oh, how did I get that at that price, right? And sure enough, I got it. I think that one question I got for 300 or 400, and 10K within a few months, and not being listed and not being priced, right? Which is like the no-no, the lazy demeanor thing. But anyhow. But yeah, no. So this year has been good for you so far.
Josh,
That's cool.
I'm figuring out what his name was. It's health. It's personal. He didn't have it for sale. So I'm guessing, was it my erectile dysfunction, and you just don't want to share? Hey, so it's
You're
I know I'm close. Hey, okay, so but Josh says that, I'll share my $50,000 sale yesterday. There's people listening to this that think, man, that would make my lifetime, and then you just may not share it. I'm going to say F that Discord. Of course, you guys got to join DNX Discord. Go to Josh's profile, join DNX Discord. I'm sure he's going to share it there, but come on, Josh. I mean, give us something here. Give us something. 50K yesterday. What happened?
Yeah, I haven't been sharing actually that much in the Discord recently. I guess I should. I sold a .co for 50 grand 2 days ago. It was nucleus.co.
Jiminy. Nucleus.co. Did you tell them before they bought it from what did you have a conversation with the people, or was it one of those buy it now, you don't know the person?
The buy it now was 60 on Afternick, and minimum offer was 30, and they came in at 30, and this was probably like 2 weeks ago. And I guess there was some back and forth that the broker had with the buyer, and then eventually the broker came to me and said, they said that 30 is their max. Are you willing to take it? And I responded and I said, it's convenient that 30 is their max, because it was also my minimum offer. Basically tell them to kick rocks. And then like a week and a bit later, they came back and said they'll pay 50. And I said, okay.
So Josh said he has his minimum offer at 50% of his buy now. So he was telling the truth there. This guy, you catch him and telling the truth all the time. So anyway, nucleus.co. Fucking great.
Yeah.
It's freaking great. You come back from, so you just had just gotten back, right? It was like your last day on your trip. And you basically just got home trying to organize your bullshit at your desk, and that comes in and you tell your wife, yeah, tell you I know what I'm doing.
I've been selling a lot of names in the like 3 to 5K range recently. So I had a bunch of them while I was away. But I also I sold on an LTO, 12-month LTO. I sold a reserveai.com yesterday, a 12-month LTO for 20 grand, and I paid $10 for that in 2020. So there you go. I guess I knew that I guess I knew AI was coming 5 years ago, guys. So
I like to go, like when I used to work at a sales office and somebody come in with a big deal, I go, congratulations.
Congratulations.
Fucking good. Was it lease approved? You ask, like, did they lease it? Like, you're hoping their deal didn't go through. That's what kind of loser I was. It didn't get lease approved. Oh, sorry. No, that's fucking great. I'd love, we all do. The rising was it rising tides lift all boats. Okay, I bring that up because Chad always says that to me about some of this new tokenization bullshit. That we want other companies to succeed, but definitely as domain investors, we like to know that things are being sold. And okay, not just Josh, the fucking poker pro, comes. We know he's cashing in. We see him at the fucking window, but namably that $27,000. That's a big sale, especially over 30,000. That's big. I'm glad to hear. So that was through a broker. And ask the broker sometime. Tell him we'd be happy to, talk about, especially that niche of, I think I got 3 total names, maybe just 2 or 3 that are even in the adult, but it is a specialty. And then Arif always thinks for, the truth hurts. Arif's like, listen, I've been slowly building my portfolio these last couple of years. We've watched Arif, he's been doing it for a long time, but now, um, going from 1,000 names to 4,000, 5,000 names, pretty big. I said the other day, you were in the crowd. I knew you couldn't respond. It's like yelling at somebody when I got the microphone and you're in the crowd getting the hot dog. I'm like, hey, yeah, the jury's still out. Meaning you're at a different point in your domain investing career with this many names. Now you don't just need a good year this year, and I hope you fucking do triple, quadruple, especially whatever your costs are. And then, but still, it's like, this is long term. You're not, planning to hopefully drop a lot of this stuff. So really, it starts getting serious when you start spending 50, 60, 70 grand a year on the renewals. But thanks for, sharing. You always say, you're sort of retracting.
Yeah,
You're
it's
not
good.
sharing as much, but you still do. Thanks.
Not really. Yeah. Well, it depends where. I mean, just all the AI scraping. I'm like, I don't know. I don't want all my data to be out there because a lot of people ask me, well, what's your domains? I do it in private rooms, but now it's at the point where somebody can just take AI and go, well, what's this? I know this domainer is profitable. What are all the domains he buys? Show me what's. And it's like, okay, well, my pool of buying stuff it's still pretty big with the closeouts and stuff like that, right? But it's still, it's not as vast as those people doing hand ridges or those people who are doing the actual real work, right? Like to me, there's a big difference between how I do it and how Josh does it, right? I'm more of a lazy guy. I like going through the list. I don't consider my time going through the list to be too variable. Like I enjoy doing it, right? It's almost a hobby or a or a therapy session for me. So aside from that, I don't do the hard work that Josh does and looking at all the other places, right? And I couldn't for all the domains I scan, right? Because back when I buy stuff, I'm scanning through 5, 7, 8,000 domains a night, right? I can't do that go jump to LinkedIn and all those other things. Obviously once I refine my list on the last few, I can, but I just don't. I go my gut and it works, right? And so instead of quadrupling my money or more than that Josh does, I just double my money every year, right? I was like, okay, that's fine. It's like I'd like to have time to do more, but I just don't have the time. So that's what I love about it, right? It's you all do it in our own different way, and I know I should be doing it better. Like I have half my domain. I don't even know it's half. I don't even know what percentage of my domains are brandable domains. And that's the thing. It's like even none of my brandables are at the brandable marketplaces. It's the dumbest thing ever, right? But the first thing I tell people to do is, put your domains, do the homework, right? Put your list domains in Afternic, on Cedo, and all your brandables. You put them on the brandable marketplaces, right? And I don't do that. So it just gives me hope because it means like, regardless of how badly I'm actually executing this and doing what I should be doing, I'm still making good money. So it's or at least I'm good profits, right? I'm not making the money like the other guys do, but again, I'm doubling my money consistently for the last 5, 6 years easily, and I've only been in this for 9 years, right? So this goes to show.
Well, let me say, me, Samit, and Kevin McKim, we've been doing this a long time, and we're all competing for who can sell the motherfucking least. I mean, listen, if you can, all of us together, we have 126 years experience in domain names, and together we've sold 3 in the last 12 months. Okay. But I want those guys to come up next week and talk about it. I invited Jason.com up to see if he wanted to say anything about this fucking South Florida meetup. It was good seeing Bruce last week. Oh, Brewster Rooster comes in for the Dodger game. He basically comes in for the Dodger game to go with his daughter opening day. It's beautiful. And then on his, he's basically going to go get a taco. So he's like, hey, come on over here. It's like basically why he's taking it down. He's like willing to see a few of us. But anyway, it's always great to see Brewster. It is fun to hug people in person. But yeah, so I invited Jason.com up. I saw him on, I talked to Jason anyway, but I saw him on DN Journal. Yeah, me and him were both wondering, why is he so important to be on DN Journal? Just fucking Jason.com off here. But they had a big meetup, Josh. There was 0 chance you were going to drive that far. I know you just got back into town anyway, but it's pretty cool seeing like 60 people, or I'm sorry, 40 to 50. Did you see that picture?
Yeah, I wasn't in town. I was at that point when it was happening. Yeah, Eddie Eddie has been asking me to come down for one of those Southern Domainer meetups for a while now, and I would like to go. Probably for the best that I wasn't there, though, to be honest.
Yeah, because you want to mess with people. It's
Yeah,
like
you know.
you're like the kind, I don't mess with anybody, but as soon as somebody says one thing to you, man, you're like, quit. What's wrong with Josh? I just made a big sale. Why doesn't take shit? I want to be around Josh. I mean, I can't help but smile when I think of just your bullshit of just who you are and how you are. Anyway, okay, Jason.com. What happened there? I mean, who was there? I know you said, I know a little bit, but tell us, just give us some highlights. We're here for like another 3 minutes.
Throw me with like fucking fucking retard hands, bro. Huh?
This guy sees a
Can you
picture
hear
of
me?
himself and he's worried about his hands. No one's looking at your hands. No one fucking cares about your
I
hands.
don't know. Can you hear me though?
Yeah, we can hear you. What happened?
Hello?
Who'd you say to what, and
Oh.
what'd they say to you, and what was worthwhile?
What? What does that mean?
Well, I mean,
don't know.
who
It was
did you
just fucking
talk
hanging
to?
out.
Anybody important? There was all sorts of kings there,
Talks domains. It was just more like a shoot your shit type friends and everything. Even Rick, bro. He's a people were having dinner with him, and shit. Just like no biggie.
I
Just
guess
talking
not.
about
You guys
talking about
Yeah.
talking about that beanstalk.
Yeah. We talked about that dick.com. No. I told him there weren't really any names on the list that I was interested in. I was looking through the list to see if I can develop anything, and I'm into the music and the video shit, and all his video sites are like the adult xxxvideos.com. I think that's the only keyword of like videos that he had, or like hottest videos.com. And just like everyone, they they copied and pasted his whole list into one of the AI, like Chat GTP. I know you did too, Todd. It comes back with what's the most popular names of the list that you should develop. What can generate the most out of the whole list. And I was gearing towards music, and it comes back with hottestmusic.com. And I'm like, I even told him, I said, I don't care about hottestmusic.com. And he comes back, he's like, how about hottestpussy.com? And I'm like, no, I still can't do anything with hottestpussy.com. I didn't say, chat, GTP told me, you
It's
should stay away from
GPT
the adult.
anyway. Hold on. But Josh, you would have
GPT.
loved
Am
this.
I
Jason,
saying that right? Or
yeah, no, you're not saying it right. And you work with anti-gravity anyway.
what am I saying?
You said Chat
Chat
GTP.
GTP. What are you
Yeah.
talking about, Todd?
He
Todd, it's
Yeah,
Chat
exactly.
GTP, dude.
yeah. Okay.
Chat
Well,
GTP, GPT,
uh,
GTP. Yeah, maybe I am saying GTP, but yeah, GPT.
okay.
Sorry.
So anyway,
We know
Josh,
we know what you're saying,
right,
Jason.
I
Don't
know, he
worry.
knows. But
Exactly, yeah.
Jason, I'm tight
Fuck
with.
you,
He's like a
Todd.
brother to me, so I can fuck with him. But I was gonna say, Josh, Jason
What?
really goes up to Rick and says, everything on your list is But I just love that whole idea of
I'm
telling
like,
the
how's your
domain
dick?
king. It's like
Yeah.
there's nothing there. You got nothing there. Hottest music. He's like, Jason gives him a thumbs down, and Rick's like, I got my blazer on.
You know
What
what
are
it
you
looks
doing?
like? It looks like his list was cherry picked for the past 20 years. That's what his list fucking looks like, and he just has like little strings, little beans left in his stock. So
But you'd have to tell the
yeah.
guy. All right. Well, so who else? We got 1 minute left. It was a pretty fun meetup. It looked like. I mean, I'm glad you went, Jason, because
I like the guy. He's a great guy. I just didn't want hottest pussy or
Yeah.
hottest music. Yeah.
Well, and what else do you remember that was top of your mind that you thought, yeah, this was one reason worth coming, but you said there was.
I don't know. I paid for someone's chicken sandwich. Yeah, I was fucking pissed about that. Yeah.
Yeah, I could probably guess who that is. Let me think.
Well,
Well, hey, thanks for being here.
Chad ordered a fucking chicken sandwich. Edad fucking, it's supposed to go on his bill. He claimed he paid for a fucking chicken sandwich. I paid for Mark Daniel's hamburger, my hamburger. His fucking dude. People drank fucking like 20 beers deep and didn't fucking get the bill as much as fucking 3 sandwiches, bro. So I don't know what the fuck happened there. It is what it is. And Chad's like, no, dude, I paid for my own chicken sandwich. I was like, there was another chicken sandwich on my bill. I'm like, I don't know how that happened.
Yeah, that wasn't my
Whatever.
guess. It's my partner, Chad. He's pretty good for the tap. He knows I'll stick him with stuff.
I paid for your chicken sandwich, Adam. Shit.
Hey, yeah, no, it was nice seeing Adam Mason out there too. I did see the picture and say Adam down the corner. Well, hey, listen, so we're gonna cut it today. We gotta go, but next week
It
we're.
was super cool though. But it's like super quick. Like
But now you want to talk? Okay, we're done here today.
10.
So, but Josh, or I'm sorry, Josh, Jason. Yeah, next week. Well, we're doing it at the same time. So come in here. I want to talk about a couple things you're building, and that we're because it's interesting. And I mentioned anti-gravity, but pretty fantastic. Not just what you can build, but Jason and I've been talking about the hard part, building the company, building the business, not just building the website. And so we have plenty of time to talk next week. We're here at DNX Show, 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern, every Thursday. Josh and I appreciate you guys being here. Finally, go to Josh's profile. He hadn't been on DNX, the Discord much lately, but I know we got to get that thing rolling again. It's still active, but basically you got to fuck with Darcy. But anyway, so see you on the Discord in the meantime, but we'll catch you here next Thursday. Everybody take care wherever you're at. Enjoy yourself. Take care of yourself.
Happy Passover.
Yep. See you later.